I'm Andy Katz from ESPN, along with my co-host Rick Klein of ABC News. On the latest edition of Capital Games, we're going to discuss how the NFL is handling domestic violence issues in the wake of the Giants cutting kicker Josh Brown. Go to the ESPN app and click on the headphone icon to get the podcast.
Frank Isola, Bomani Jones, Woody Page, and Bill Plaschke's with us today. Bill, I eliminated you before the show in your last two appearances. You can stick around today, but if I even hear the words, it's over, the mute will be swift and gobsmacking. Today, Game 6 of the World Series. Bears, Vikings, and what LeBron's Halloween party is telling the Warriors. Let's go around the horn. Yay!
Tony, it's technically over tomorrow night, so Bill can say that.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter.
Copycat.
Here's Tony Reale.
Game 6. The words sound dramatic. I'll bet if you went through the great games all time, just as many Game 6s as 7. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow a mystery. Today is a gift, which is why they call it the present. I got that from Kung Fu Panda. Frank, is tonight a gift for Cleveland or Chicago?
Well, you know, it's interesting because Chicago finished with the best record, so Game 6 really should be in Chicago. But because of that silly All-Star game situation, the American League won, the game is there. It actually benefits Chicago because Kyle Schwarber can now play. He can be the designated hitter. He's 9 for 16 in 4 career games at Progressive Field. So their best offensive player is now in the lineup. Jake Arrieta is on his normal rest and pitching tonight. And then you have Josh Tomlin, for only the second time in his career for Cleveland, is going to pitch on 3 days rest. He's been great on extended rest. In his 3 postseason starts, he's 2-0. Now he's doing something out of the box. I think a lot of pressure is on Cleveland to finish it tonight. I think Chicago's actually in a pretty good position.
Bomani, are you with Frank that the pressure script is flipped and there's more pressure on Cleveland to close out tonight?
Well, I think we're still dealing with one team that is one loss away from elimination. If there is the pressure, would still be on that team. Now, if it gets to Game 7, that's going to be the tightest place there's ever been of all time with all those dueling curses and everything else. But for Game 6, you have to feel like that this is a good one for the Cubs. If for no other reason, then they got to give Aroldis Chapman the Game 7 treatment in Game 5 and kept him out there for 8 outs and then got to rest him. So it's almost like that never happened. They have a chance to win this one. However, they've only been able to hit Trevor Bauer. As far as starting pitchers go, that's the only one. Trevor Bauer isn't going to pitch for the rest of this series.
Woody Page, join us.
Well, I don't think the pressure shifted from the Cubs to the Cleveland Indians at all. When you talk about 40 years difference of winning World Series, that the Cubs all year long, they have had to deal with the pressure, with all of the curses, with all of the hexes, with not winning this World Series. I think that the pressure continues to be on them coming back here. They got to win 2. Cleveland's still thinking the last 3 games, all we got to do is win 1. So I think the pressure's on Chicago, and I think the Cubs handle it well. I think Arrieta goes out. He is leading the league this year in percentages of turning ground balls into out, 84%. If he can get them into the 6th or 7th inning, they can have a slight bridge to Chapman and get him in for, instead of 8 outs, maybe 6, and that will be just enough. I think Tomlin, as Frank pointed out, with that short rest, that's going to be a problem. He's only done that twice before in his career. Okay. I look for the Cubs to win tonight.
So you think the pressure's on Chicago, but you think Chicago's going to stand up to that pressure and win the game. Absolutely. Now we'll turn our attention to Bill Plaschke. And watch your step, Bill, because
I'm watching my
bold
step.
proclamations against Chicago. This
right,
is
no proclamations here. I was in the middle of all this in the NLCS in Chicago. The pressure is so enormous on the Cubs. It's hard to understand unless you're there. The crowds outside the Wrigley Field before the game, the mob scene. Even Joe Madden said for a 24-year-old to walk through that, to go to play, to go to work, it puts a huge burden on them. The Cubs, the pressure is all off them now because they're not at Wrigley Field. They're not all that. The only curse that's in the stands now is the Indians' curse, not the Cubs' curse. That's why the Cubs win the game tonight. Arrieta, the last time he had an elimination game on the road, threw a shutout last year in the wild card game. You mentioned Tomlin on short rest. Everybody says, well, Chapman's going to be wiped out. In his career, in games after he's thrown more than 30 pitches, he's got a 0.52 ERA. So Chapman, he's a freak of nature. Look how big he is. He'll be okay pitching. Maybe he can probably get 4 or 5 outs as well. They'll get to him. Cubs win tonight.
I sold it back in.
Well, Bill, since you brought it up, it could come down to 2 former Yankee relievers, either Andrew Miller or Chapman.
You've got to mute him for that.
Hang on. The key is how early does Miller come into the game? Because Tomlin is not going to go through that lineup more than twice. So are they hoping to maybe get 5 innings? You could see Miller as early as the 5th inning. And then the other key will be the Cavaliers game is starting at 6. Does LeBron make it to Progressive Field in time for the celebration if there's a celebration? You never know.
New York NBA.
And does LeBron remember to take off his Yankees cap? Bill, I understand what you're saying about the pressure in Chicago. However, the last time Cleveland won a World Series, they had Hall of Famers like Lou Boudreau, Larry Doby, and Satchel Paige. It'll be tight in there for them, too, if it goes to Game 7.
Okay. Bill's got Chicago, which is the stunner of all stunners.
Yes,
Woody's got
game.
Chicago. Frank, it was Chicago as well for you. And how about Bomani?
Yeah, Chicago's better for business.
All right. We all got, I got to give a mute to plasma number 4 here, because not only did he bring up the Yankees in New York, he also brought up the NBA in a World Series discussion. What a stunner from Isola. We're going to move on here. Let's see how many of you guys snap a hamstring jumping off this Viking ship. They were gashed by the Bears last night, a team buoyed by motivational Jay Cutler, and also running a helmet-headed offense. So, Woody Page, I'll start with you. Are you going to say we found out who the Vikings are last night?
No, but what we've seen the last 2 games is the QBPs have really increased on Bradford. That's quarterback pressures, by the way. 30%, and he's been sacked 11 times in those 2 games after being sacked rarely in the first games and not throwing interceptions. But I think that the Vikings can get it in line. Zimmer's a good coach. They're in a division that they can still win. They can correct the mistakes they've made offensively. They're not running the ball effectively. But that home field advantage with that new stadium in a division that they can win in a conference that nobody's running away with, I think the level of concern should be rather low because those are correctable problems.
Let's see if Bomani agrees. 8 days ago, they were 5-0. Now they're 5-2, Jones.
Yeah, here's the thing about that Viking ship. If you're not going to jump onto the offensive line, chances are you might want to jump off. Because one thing that has changed through the course of this year is that offensive line got more and more injured, and they had to go get Jake Long out of a time machine to play left tackle. And there's thoughts of them mortgaging their future even further to trade to get another offensive lineman. That's where their issue is. If you can't pass block and you can't run block, you're not going to be able to win. And at a point, that's going to take a toll on that great defense because they have to do too much. So I don't think we were wrong about Minnesota when they were playing well, but things have changed.
Isola, you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think there's such a fine line because the quarterback is still unproven in big games. So it has to come down to the defense. And when your defense is giving up 153 yards rushing to that rookie, Jordan Howard, that's where you're losing the game. Mike Zimmer's team has to win because of defense and then just hope that Sam Bradford can manage the game. He can't manage the game when he's on his back. 11 sacks the last 2 games. But here's the one thing to remember. They are 2 losses on the road, not at home. They look almost unbeatable in their own building.
Flashkey.
No, I don't see any way out of it for the Vikings, Frank. You talk about the defense. That's because they're on the field so much. They can't. Their offense keeps putting them back out there. Again, I think what Bomani said, they can't protect the passer and they can't run the football. 2.7 yards per carry, last in the league in rushing per carry, and they're rushing the ball all the time. Last night, half their rushes went for like 2 yards or less. There's really no way out for them. There's no minor leagues in football to call somebody up. There's nobody to get in a trade. And again, I think in the beginning the defense was able to carry, and the defense is too wiped out now. I don't see much hope for the Vikings.
I like the way you said that, Bill. They're not done. It's not over. I don't see much hope.
No.
Okay, last word, Jones, after the horn.
Also, by the way, if you see Sam Bradford get sacked 11 times in 2 games, you're wondering when that game is going to come when he, hurt.
Gets hurt? Is that what you're saying? Okay, I'm not going to give you a point for that. In fact, I'm going to give you a point for how you said it before. I wrote it down. I don't think we were wrong. It's just that the Vikings are a different team now. I don't think we were wrong. How convenient for Bomani Jones. We'll move on. Stop me when this next one sounds familiar. NFL says they missed the call. Exactly. This should have been an unnecessary roughness. Cam said he doesn't feel safe. And Steeler Marcus Gilbert, check out these quotes. When he's running over people, he's going to stand right up and he's going to celebrate. If you don't like it, then tell the coach or coordinator to change the whole game plan. Don't be out there if you're scared. Bomani Jones, does Gilbert have a point here? If Pam is celebrating the good, does he have to take the bad as well?
First of all, I wasn't wrong before. I got so excited saying that I stepped all over your question. Now, as for Marcus Gilbert, I believe that he is right and wrong at the same time. I do believe that he is correct that once a player says that that he doesn't feel like he's safe, it sounds like he's saying that he's afraid, and that's not a game that you can play when you're afraid. That being said, yeah, a lot of the gameplay for Cam Newton is those power runs, and a lot of that is contact, but a lot of what we're talking about with him that doesn't get called is him doing what people say he's quote-unquote supposed to, which is stand in the pocket. There is no quarterback of the stature of Cam Newton that would take that shot to the knees and there not be a 15-yard penalty. So, yeah, he's right. If Cam says he doesn't feel safe, it's probably in the right game for him to play. That being said, some of his arguments were really not about what Cam was talking about.
Isola?
And Bomani, it's almost like we're all to blame because we think about the quarterback and, you have to protect the delicate quarterback. Along comes Cam Newton, who seems like this superhuman football player out there that nothing can stop him, and yet we're allowing him to take hits that other quarterbacks would not be taking. That hit that he took there below the knee, that's something that could end his season. Who knows? Maybe his career. The NFL absolutely has to do something about that. They have to do also a better job of protecting him. But let's face it, when he gets out and he's running the ball, you're fair game if you're not going to slide. He needs to get the Russell Wilson, Tom Brady slide down pat.
That's what Gilbert was talking about when he was talking about Cam celebrating after those runs. But Gilbert also brought up the fact that the Steelers changed their offense a little bit when Roethlisberger was piling up injuries, and the coordinator changed how they ran the offensive scheme. Is there anything to that, Plaschke?
Well, no, they actually call roughing the passer on Roethlisberger's hits sometimes. It's amazing to me, and it's not a coincidence since Cam's MVP season last year has not been called roughing the passer once, and not once except the penalty for that. That's unbelievable. And you can't tell me it's a coincidence. And I think what the Steeler guy was talking about was everything past the line of scrimmage. Cam's talking about everything behind the line of scrimmage, and you have to protect him. And I think his words, unfortunately, we're getting his words mixed up with the reality. He probably shouldn't have said anything. He should have let his coach and his owner handle all this stuff. And the thing about feeling safe, I know what he's talking about, and it looks bad, but what he's talking about is getting the same protection other quarterbacks have. He's not getting it.
Is that how you see it, Woody?
Well, I think that Gilbert was wrong to be talking about Cam Newton because when he's brought up Roethlisberger and how they changed the scheme, look back on Roethlisberger's career. He gets hurt practically every season. He's hurt again now. I think that the referee is at fault here because he's the one who is devoted to watching the quarterback and how he's rushed. I think that's number one. That's the blame. I think the referee missed the call on Sunday, and Cam Newton, going back to that game in Denver, he is not being treated like other quarterbacks. When he gets out as a runner, fine, you do whatever you want to if he's not going to slide, but in the pocket he should be protected better. I think the other problem that exists in the NFL, offensive lines are not being trained. Offensive linemen are not being trained in college really to do a great job of blocking. And what you're seeing is great outside pass rushers that are not being stopped by the offensive line, and that's putting Cam Newton and other quarterbacks in a bad position. But I think Cam has a right to say he is afraid. I'm sure he'd be afraid to wear that outfit.
Bomani, after the horn, last word to you. Hearing an opposing player bring up Cam celebrating when he does something good and also saying, well, now you got to take your hits and maybe you don't get flags for him when you want him. What do you think of that?
I mean, I don't understand why celebrating the first down means that people get to hit you in the knees. I struggle to see the connection between those two things.
There is none.
We've been warm. We're taking a break right here. Paige, Jones, they could put the feet up and buy or sell. We'll get that after this break.
Not yet. Not done yet.
College football lives here. After a 1-3 start, USC has won 4 straight and have their sights set on defending their Pac-12 South title.
Slash back at the 5, touchdown, Trojans.
Up next, Oregon comes to the Coliseum, averaging over 40 points per game.
Sudden change, big play for the Ducks, they take over.
Coverage begins Saturday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Presented by Dr. Pepper. Buy or sell.
The Thunder are putting up $180 million for Steven Adams and Victor Oladipo right now before we get to the summer's stick-up, smash-and-grab, new cap setting. Buy or sell that, Bill Plaschke?
I'm buying that. In that marketplace, stability is really important. Those two guys with Westbrook will now form a stable core. Plus, that allows them this summer to have the freedom to go out and get a Blake Griffin from the Clippers.
Woody Page?
Well, you're somewhat wrong, Bill. I mean, they're going to have to dump a lot of expiring contracts and trade some players in order to be able to go and give a max contract. Right now, they're not allowed to do it, but I'm still buying the deal because you were able to do it under this salary cap, and you go over the salary cap, and they're building a young team, 23 and 24-year-olds around Westbrook, and they can go get one more star player.
Bomani Jones?
Well, I buy it for Adams. The $25 million a year is what a rim protector is going to cost, let alone a 23-year-old rim protector as good as Adams. Oladipo, the deal's a little bit shakier. Like, I guess that's what a guy like that costs at this point, but I think we got more questions about him as a player than we do about my man Stephen Goldtooth Adams.
Right. He's only been on the team for about 2 weeks. Frank Isola, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what happens when you start up the season 3-0. Everybody gets paid. Here's the thing about Steven Adams. Remember, he was a starting player on a team that was basically one good quarter away from making it to an NBA Finals. But come on now, 6.3 points, 6 rebounds a game over his career. Someone get Charles Barkley, Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird on the phone. How about the money being handed out in the league?
So that's all relative, isn't it, though? Everybody's getting paid.
Getting paid.
You question the Adams money over the Oladipo money here. That's surprising to me. We'll move on. Buy or sell two. The chances Bill Belichick made a mistake in trading Jamie Collins. Danny Kelly, the ringer. Woody, you can say this is what he does. Belichick cuts and trades on whim. Doesn't always mean it's smart. So banishing a Pro Bowler to Cleveland for a pick at 7-1, could that be a mistake?
I believe so. I'm selling it. I know there are people who say Belichick can do no wrong. He has proven he can make mistakes in the past. You got a guy that's a Pro Bowler, the leader of your defense. Yes, he's gone off the rails some this year, but the guy's going to be a free agent, and you could get a compensatory pick that would be just about what you got. And I think he's going to play hard in the second half of the season because he is going to be a free agent.
Bomani Jones?
I mean, it might have been a mistake. It's worth noting the Chandler Jones trade might have been a mistake. They released Jonathan Cooper, who they got back in that trade without him actually playing a down. So we'll see how this goes because they expected to have Jamie Collins for this year. Now you take him out in the middle of the year. That feels different than an offseason trade.
So,
Gentlemen, defense is Bill Belichick's baby. How about Richard Seymour? They sent him off. Lawyer Malloy. We all thought, oh, these were the moves that'll kill the Patriots. Bill Belichick's, he'll always get rid of a guy maybe 1 year too early as opposed to 1 year too late. Look at his history and his track record. He has a great track record.
Flashkey.
I've said enough dumb things on national TV lately that I'm not going to go there. I'm not saying Bill Belichick
That is
made
the
a
most
mistake.
accurate thing you've said on national TV lately.
I am not saying Bill Belichick made a mistake. Anybody who says that is risking their credibility. The guy never makes a mistake on things like this. Plus, they have a rookie linebacker, Landon Roberts. They love this kid, and he played a lot last week. He's going to be the future. That's what he's seeing. Belichick's doing what's best for the team. He always does.
We'll move on. Buy or sell three. The preseason AP poll, women's college basketball. You ready? UConn has won 75 straight games. They've won 4 straight championships. They are UConn, and they're number 3. Notre Dame 1, Baylor 2. Buy or sell, Bomani?
I feel like you're trying to get me to lie by posing this question in front of me right now. I am going to reluctantly say buy. And the reason that I'm going to say buy is if UConn were number 2 in that poll, you might think people were just trying to get cute. Being number 3 says that we have legitimate reasons to look at these other teams as maybe this being the year that they contend.
So you're buying. How about you, Isola?
You know what? I am too. Remember, Breanna Stewart, she is the Michael Jordan of that sport. She was a dominant player for 4 years. That's the reason why they're not putting them preseason number 1. They lost one of the greatest players in the history of women's college basketball.
Okay. In fact, they lost the top 3 picks in the draft, but they've lost top picks in the draft before. Bill Flashkey, buy or sell?
Frank, every year they have the Michael Jordan of women's college basketball. Every year for the last 20 years. This is a lot of AP voters telling themselves, you know what? The women's game needs a little more parity. It needs a perception of parity. So we're going to give them that with this first vote. That's the only reason for it. There's no logical, credible explanation for this at all. None.
Woody?
I looked at the 33 voters, and I was trying to figure out exactly what they were thinking. They weren't thinking. When you have a team like Connecticut, and yes, they lost their 3 best young players, but they got 2 returning starters, another who contributed, and they signed a kid named Dangerfield who's going to be the next Michael Jordan, Frank. And so I don't think this is a case of you lower them until they're actually proven to be.
Listen to Woody.
You got to respect
Dangerfield. A lot of respect. You really did.
You got to respect
I mean, this is even more of a meaningless conversation than usual with preseason polls because everybody plays everybody at the top. in women's basketball. So what are they, Baylor in the second week of the season? And then they have Notre Dame in the second month of the season? We'll see what happens. No need to
Is it over for me, Tony?
Yes, it is. And Isola. Paige, Jones, showdown next.
College football lives here. LSU is 3-0 since Ed Orgeron took over as head coach, and they've averaged over 41 points in those 3 wins.
LSU has a significant lead late.
Up next, the #1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide storms into Death Valley for a huge SEC showdown Saturday night.
Fumble. Alabama's got the football.
Coverage begins at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews for the first time ever tonight. People of your ilk setting the bar real high here. How can it live up to that billing, Woody?
Well, they're not even going to show it on American television. I know that the Canadian teams don't get much of a rating here, but when you got 2 of the rising stars in the NHL and you're showing the Islanders and the Lightning, give me a break. We want to see it.
Yeah, but they asked how can they live up to the billing, and they just got to put on a performance that makes everybody understand you got to put them on television. So give me a couple goals apiece for both of them. I mean, I still love this idea that the rising star of the NHL is a Mexican dude from Arizona.
That's a fair point. You'll get a point for that. Woody, I had to look this up. You're absolutely right. Lightning Islanders is what's on tonight. The first of that doubleheader. Whew. 2 points for Paige. We'll move on. 3-1 lead on the kick drum. Tombstones for Klay Thompson and Steph Curry on the cookies. Was LeBron's Halloween party a trick or treat, Bomani?
I mean, all of that was a treat. I liked the smack talk. I liked the kick drum. But then it started looking real tricky, I suppose. What are those owls doing there? Are you paying homage to Drake on Halloween? This isn't a holiday for him.
I don't think you understand. This is a trick. And, yes, it was a cute kind of party and everything. But this is going to come back to haunt you, Cavaliers, because, get that, Tony? Haunt you. The Warriors are going to remember this.
That's not... Watch yourself. You got a lead in showdown. Don't be doing any tricks. Points going to Woody Page. FaceTime to Woody Page.
Big comings and goings in sports today. Ray Allen has announced his retirement. Even though he hadn't played since 2014, we can't forget that play he made in Game 6 in the 2013 finals down in Bomani's town, Miami, and the fact that he finishes as the all-time greatest three-point shooter. Nobody had a cooler shot than Ray Allen. But at the other end of the country, we've got Percy Harvin coming out of retirement. He had retired after 7 years in the league with Seattle and Buffalo. He's going to play with Buffalo again. Welcome back, Percy. Goodbye and good luck in the rest of your life, Ray Allen. Love you both.
Comings and goings. That's old school journalism, Woody.
That could be a regular FaceTime for you. 23.5-hour break for us. We'll see you tomorrow around the horn.
Great FaceTime, and you'll never find out about it.
#1 ranked Alabama heads to Death Valley for a huge SEC showdown against LSU.
Snap, fumble, Alabama's got the football.
Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.